Here at Yes God Wellness, we focus on goddess consciousness, which is an awareness of the divine feminine energy that is within all of us. It's an understanding that our worth and value is internal and it's not defined by our external possessions, our circumstances, anything outside of us. Goddesses are disciplined and intentional about pausing to observe how they truly feel in any given situation or circumstance, and we honor those authentic feelings so that we can communicate our needs and boundaries in a way that allows us to have experiences that leave us fulfilled and at peace. So today I am going to be discussing the silent best friend that is always with us and ready to help us transform. And that best friend is anger. So I'm going to share a little bit about my own personal experience with anger and transformation. So back on November 10th, 2006, I was having a ladies' night with my girlfriends, and we were about to watch No More Sheets by Juanita Bynum. I received a phone call with news that my son's father had been shot and was in the hospital. Initially, I was shocked and a bit scared, but not too concerned because Michael is a big, healthy guy, and I'm sure he could have withstood a gunshot wound. I knew many people who already had, unfortunately. As me and my best friend drove to the hospital, I vividly picture going into the hospital room, joking with him, making him laugh. As usual, that's what I thought was going to happen when I got to the hospital. As we walked into the hospital, I was anxiously looking around, asking information desk where he was. They waved me over to a group of people, his family and friends, who were all congregated in the hallway. I began to ask, "Where's Michael?" And in retrospect, now I can see how everyone was kind of avoiding my question and really avoiding me. Finally, a friend of his sister slowly walked up to me, shaking her head no. And she whispered, "Michael's gone, Megan." And I froze. I was in shock. And then the next emotion that I remember feeling was extreme rage. My legs went out from underneath me. I fell, I hit the ground. I started to scream, "Why, God, did you do this to my son?" And I had to be carried by my arms and legs to the bathroom where I continued to wail and angrily demand to know why God would do this. I honestly don't remember much after that, besides having to go and pick my son up, walk through the yellow tape, and take him back to the car and take him home. I knew his father was gone, but he didn't know. And I didn't even know how to process what I had just learned. So I decided to wait to tell him in the morning. All he knew was that his dad went to the store and never came home. Over the next few months, my life changed in almost every way possible. I had already been contemplating moving to another state, but the rage and anger that had transpired really lit a fire under my efforts. And so within 6 months, I was driving a packed U-Haul, leaving my hometown to start a new life in North Carolina with my two young children. So the trajectory of my entire life changed, and the catalyst was a devastating loss, which caused immense rage and anger inside of me. That rage fueled me to make a choice to change my current circumstance. And I know that we can all relate to being angry or frustrated and it leading us to take some type of action, even if it's on a small scale. Maybe we got annoyed by a company who emails us too much and we went ahead and found the unsubscribe button so we wouldn't keep seeing them, right? So, on the contrary, maybe being angry pushed you to do things that caused harm to yourself or other people and ultimately ended in regret. Anger is a response to a failed expectation, whether the expectation is reasonable, whether the expectation is to be treated with respect, or for a circumstance or situation to stay within your expectations. Anger is an emotion that comes up a lot in my coaching calls, and it's typically something that people either shy away from or they attempt to suppress it, or they lean heavily into it, causing, being chaos and regret. So, my goal today is to help you become aware of the ways in which you may be unconsciously allowing anger to create the exact things that you don't want to experience in life. There are a lot of misconceptions about anger. A few of these misinterpretations are that anger is a negative emotion, expressing anger is unhealthy, anger leads to aggression. Anger is a sign of weakness or a lack of control, and avoiding anger is a sign of emotional strength. You could even have learned that being angry means you're out of control. There's typically three responses to anger, and I encourage you to take the time to reflect on these responses and see which ones you're naturally inclined to do. I find that most of my clients are naturally inclined to suppress their anger, and that's the first response. So when you suppress your anger, you try to hold it in without expressing it, you try to ignore it. And this can lead to internalized stress, resentment, emotional disconnection, eventually manifesting as passive aggressive behavior or even physical health issues. Unbridled anger, which is expressed impulsively and without restraint, is it can be in the form of outburst or aggressive behavior. Now, this anger is very dangerous because it can lead to damaged relationships, loss of credibility, and unintended consequences that can be lifelong. Number three, harnessed anger. This is the anger that is acknowledged and channeled in a constructive and strategic way. So it involves using the energy of anger to fuel positive actions and solutions, clear communication, and turning it into a force for growth, change, and productive outcomes. So I'm going to give a couple examples of different life situations that you may or may not have experienced and how these three different approaches to anger may result given these scenarios. Okay. So the one is being overlooked for a job or promotion. If you suppressed your anger in this situation, you probably felt disappointed and frustrated on the inside, but you convinced yourself that it's not a big deal and you try to carry on as if nothing happened. If you're impulsive and reactive in your anger, you may have lashed out at your boss or coworkers, which then damaged your professional reputation, created tension with your colleagues, or even resulted in you being terminated. If you channel your anger in a constructive way in this circumstance, it could look like having a constructive conversation with your boss, asking for feedback on what skills or experiences that you may need to develop in order to earn the promotion in the future. This approach can strengthen your relationship with your boss, along with giving you a clear action plan for your career growth. And it helps you to gain new skills, positioning you for future opportunities. So, out of those three approaches to anger, the channeling in a constructive way is obviously the one that is going to get us closest to what we desire as the end result. All right. The another situation scenario is a friendship, right? A friendship where you feel disrespected or you feel that your boundaries are being violated. If you suppress your anger, you laughed it off, you may change the subject to avoid the conflict, but deep down you still feel disrespected and you begin to feel like you want to withdraw and you're developing a resentment against your friend. If you're impulsive or reactive with your anger in this scenario, you may explode when you feel disrespected, you may attack your friend, criticize them, which can lead to a strained relationship or even an ending of the friendship. If you channel your anger in a constructive way, it could look like using your anger as a signal that your boundaries need to be communicated. And this could be planned for an ideal time to have a conversation in a respectful but firm way, which could lead to healthier friendships where your needs are recognized and respected. And I think the main theme about anger and addressing it is timing. Typically, when we're in a triggered state and we're upset about something, is not the time to try to have a conversation about it because we're still emotional. It's so important for us to give ourselves time to process our emotions for our own selves. Our emotions are not necessarily for us to process with other people, they are to process with ourselves. Anyways, that's the goal so that we can move forward to get our needs met or come to a solution. Another scenario is maybe perhaps a relationship where you feel like your partner was being inattentive to your needs. If you suppress your anger, you may have chosen to keep quiet, hoping things would improve on their own, hoping that they would pick up on your signs, you dropping hints here and there. This could cause emotional distance, eventually manifesting as a disconnection or a desire to leave the relationship entirely. If you're impulsive and reactive in your anger, you may have an emotional outburst, which drives a wedge in that relationship. It pushes your partner away and it prevents the connection from becoming a safe space where issues can be navigated in a healthy and constructive way, which ultimately leads to a stronger bond with your partner as well. If you channel your anger in a constructive way, it could look like taking the time to process and really figure out what are my needs in this relationship, and then communicating openly with your partner about those needs at the right time, which creates opportunities for your needs to be met, along with potentially experiencing a renewed sense of connection, where both partners make conscious efforts to prioritize the relationship, resulting in greater intimacy and understanding. All right. Another potential situation is if you consistently receive negative criticism from a family member. If you suppress your anger and you don't speak up, the criticism may break down your confidence, lower your self esteem, cause insecurities. If you're impulsive and reactive, you may decide to criticize them in return. You may make personal attacks, causing tension and resentment, which may take a really long time to repair that relationship if it's ever possible. If you channel your anger in a constructive way, it could look like actually reflecting, first of all, on whether there's any truth in the criticism. Because if there is some truth in it, we want to use any and all opportunities for self-improvement and to set look at ourselves and decide, hey, you know what, I need to change here? Is there something to this criticism? Or it could be that, hey, you know what? I need to set healthier boundaries with this family member. This approach can lead to personal growth, stronger boundaries, more balanced relationship where mutual respect and understanding are prioritized. The last scenario that I'm going to talk about is being unfairly discriminated against in the workplace. So if you suppress your anger, you probably don't speak up for fear of losing your job. You don't want to be labeled as difficult. You may feel helpless, stressed out. Ultimately, it could affect both your job performance and your mental health. We don't want to do that. Oh God. If you're impulsive and reactive in your anger, your uncontrolled response could backfire, leading to professional consequences, being reprimanded, further isolation, and again, potentially being terminated from your job. If you channel your anger in a constructive way, it could look like documenting instances of the discrimination, presenting your concerns to HR for higher management in a professional and assertive manner. And this approach is more strategic because it brings light and attention to the unfair practices in the workplace, which can lead to a positive change in company policies, fostering a more inclusive and respectful work environment. So, of course, all of these scenarios are dependent on the other individual involved as well. However, we do know as goddesses that the only person that we are in control of is ourselves. So it makes sense to position ourselves in the best way to have our needs and desires met. Okay. And that is through communicating them. And the only way we can communicate them is if we first take the time to be clear about what they are in the first place. Because a lot of times, what has happened with me in the past when I was younger is I would get angry about something and then I would create a narrative in my head about this is why, and if they didn't, then or if they did, they would have. And that just further exacerbates the anger. It makes it get bigger and bigger. And ultimately, it's a repetitive pattern because it never actually gets addressed at the root, which is the need, right? Because anytime we're angry about something, it's because there's a need that we have that is not being met, whether that's to be respected, whether that's to be listened to, whether that's to be considered. Okay. So I recommend that you check out the work of Louise Hay, where she documents, she has, it's called The Emotional and Mental Causes of Illness. And last week I talked about how triggers can bring up responses and reactions that are subconscious and the importance of pausing in the moment of a trigger. And this is no different with anger. During my personal and group coaching sessions, anger is one of the most common responses to triggers. And it can be really destructive, whether it's suppressed or whether it's impulsively acted upon. So both of those two extremes are very dangerous. So we want to learn how to channel it constructively so that it can be our best friend and help us get the things that we want and desire out of life. All right. So the first step for transforming our relationship with anger is to notice when it arises and to allow yourself to feel it. This doesn't mean lashing out at others, but simply becoming aware of the feeling without judging it. Trying not to create a narrative around it, trying not to create a scenario in your head that is going to further provoke you and make you more angry. So the questions that you can ask yourself are first, deep breath. Before anything, first, deep breath. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what is really going on here? Okay. What is anger trying to tell me? Is there something deeper underneath this anger? Am I feeling hurt? Am I feeling frustrated? Am I feeling fearful? Am I feeling disappointment? Because anger is one of those emotions that's like the Trojan horse. It comes in and it tries to storm us, but really inside, there's other things that are beneath the surface. Okay. So, as we discussed, anger is often a signal that something in our life is out of balance. And so, instead of dismissing your anger, treat it like a trusted messenger delivering an important message to you. Okay. So, tracking your triggers is a way that you can start to um, become more aware of them and keep a journal, maybe the note app on your phone. Take note of what situations consistently make you angry and note the patterns. Do certain people, places, or situations consistently trigger your anger? That may be a case of maybe you are hanging around the wrong people, places, and situations. Once you've identified the pattern, you can start working on your solutions. Mastering the pause. Like I say, goddess consciousness is all about stopping, taking a breath, being still, and being quiet. All right. Challenge yourself. First, try 2 minutes. If it's really hard for you to keep quiet, try 2 minutes. Then try 5 minutes. Set a timer. Try and give yourself an hour. All right. Try and create an anger toolkit where you have strategies that help you calm down and process your anger, whether it's breathing, meditating, yoni steaming, taking a walk, drinking a cup of tea, going to work out. I know that's my go to, honey, because I want to look cute and all that. Yes, God. But also, I want to manage my emotions and I want to give myself an outlet to express my frustrations because we all have frustrations in life. Nobody's exempt from that, right? We can also set goals, right? We goals for ourselves and say, okay, the next time I'm triggered, the next time I'm angry about something, I am going to take a deep breath and I'm going to give myself 2 hours to process it and get over it. Maybe that's too short. Maybe we say 2 days, depending on what we're angry about, right? It depends because there's different varying levels. And then also, it's important to celebrate our progress. When we notice that we're handling situations differently than we may have in the past, it's very important to acknowledge that and give ourselves praise and celebrate ourselves and celebrate our evolution because it's not easy to change. It takes intention, it takes discipline, and it takes consistency. All right. So each time you feel angry, it's an opportunity to learn more about yourself and strengthen your emotional muscles. All right. So I hope this was helpful. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, subscribe to my newsletter if you enjoyed this content. Our current Becoming Unrecognizable coaching cohort is for applications right now. We are in week 2, and I'm super excited because we are seeing amazing results. However, we will be opening back up again on December 1st. So be encouraged and feel free to submit your application for that if you're interested in entering into 2025, becoming unrecognizable, and keeping in mind that our self concept is the most important thing that we bring to manifestation into any life situation because it's not necessarily about changing the external circumstances, it's about changing who we are and what we expect in order to magnetize our ideal circumstances to us. So I hope this was helpful. I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Yes, God.